Dan Wasylkiw, and my reg number was 1559, 1559. I retired at the rank of senior man in the hall. They sent me around quite a bit. I started off at 22 station. I went to 10 station. I went to 6 station, and then I got pigeonholed at number 8 station because I took deck rescue. So I was at 8 station for like 9 years. And when they transferred me out, I always got sent back to 8 station anyway when the tour came up because they needed a tech guy. So 9 years at 8. And I retired out of number 7 station. With Captain Tredenik, I was coming here for casually for about 7 or 8 years, and then a little bit more in the last, since I retired 3 years ago. You know, I didn't decide to get into firefighting. I don't know how to say it to you, but I think firefighting picked me. I don't want it to sound bad, but it's just the way the cookie crumbled, really. I had no job, and a friend of mine who was a firefighter said that the fire department is hiring, and they want some people that are willing to, you know, apply themselves. And I said, that's me. And I applied, and they hired me. Yeah, they hired me at 40. I was a month short of my 44th birthday, and so they said that I was the sympathy hire. They felt sorry for me, so they hired me. Yeah. One of the things I would like to quickly mention about when I got on the job was how I quite accidentally bumped into my captain, George Tredenik, which was at Polo Park, and I had been on the job for like a week, and I had been shipped to 22 station, which was his station, and I was working on 3 shift, which was his shift, and he's the captain at 22. Well, he seen me wearing my fire t-shirt, and I was with my daughter. She was 1 year old, and he said, oh, he says, I don't recognize you from the fire department. And I go, yeah, I just got on. He says, oh, where do you work? I said, 22 station. He goes, well, I'm the captain at 22 station, and I didn't see you there. What shift are you on? And I said, I'm on 3 shift. He goes, I'm the captain on 3 shift. You're not on my crew. And what had happened was that I had been sent to 22 the same time that he was sent from 22 to 10 station. And we passed in Polo Park. And to this day, we just think that that is just a crazy coincidence that we talk about to this day, and that was like 23 years ago. Yeah. He just came up to me and started chatting, and just the way it all turned out, like, how come I'm going to 22, and that's his station, and the passing, like 2 ships passing in the night. And then I found out he lived on the same street I lived on. We both lived on Beverly Street, about a half a block from each other. Yeah, it was just, it was crazy. It was really nice, and those kind of things, and all of a sudden you find out he's your boss later on in life, and it's pretty nice. There's some, I don't know what you want to call it, serendipity. What's that other word people use? Not coincidence, but there's other things that happen that are really nice moments in life. And that was one of them for me. Yeah. And I remember when I first got on, and I was still a probie, and I was very nervous in that, and I had to write my probies test after 6 months being on the job, and I just didn't think I would do well. And my captain seemed to feel that I would do very well, so there was none of this, horseplay or no cheating or nothing like that. And I figured, I'm not going to make this, I'm not going to pass this test. And I remember the guys I worked with told me not to worry. They had it well in hand, and I couldn't figure out what they meant, because the captain had put me in his office and closed the door and took all the books out, so I had no way of doing anything except answering the test as best I could. Well, it turns out that we had a chief at 10 station, and the guys had gone into the chief's office with all the manuals, and we had a red phone that was connected to the two stations, to the two offices, and the guys were nice enough to get me on the phone and just hold the phone and give me the answers to all the questions. I got 98, by the way. I got 98. I don't think I could personally use the word favorite, but there was some truly awesome calls, and there were some truly awesome memories. I remember that we saved a lady from drowning. She jumped off the bridge, the Disraeli Bridge, and we had been dispatched, and she jumped off just as we got there, but the boat wasn't there yet, and as we were down by the riverbank, me and my partner looked behind me, and the house that we cut through the yard had a canoe there. So we took the guy's canoe. We commandeered this man's canoe. He wasn't home, and we went out and we paddled out, and by the grace of the Lord, we saved that lady. We got out there, she was going down, and my partner jumped out of the canoe and grabbed her hand just as she was going down, and we pulled her over the side of the canoe and waited for the motorboat to come, and we saved her life. And that was kind of interesting. I like that. And my partner was a little apprehensive about taking a canoe, and he said, "We can't just take somebody's canoe." And I said, "Yes, we can." And he said to me, "Well, you can answer for it if the chief gets down on us." Eh? I said, "I'll answer for it, no problem." So off we went. And that lady had just jumped off the bridge, I remember, and we saw her go down once or twice, and we're paddling out there like crazy, and we got her, just got her arm, her arm was sticking out, and my partner jumped out, and we tethered him to the canoe because the river's gonna take you. He would have been gone, but we did everything that was reasonably safe to do. Another call I had personally been on is somebody that was under the influence of alcohol had climbed up into the radio tower up North Main by the water treatment plant, and he got stuck up there. And it was about 220 feet. So they sent me and my partner up there to get him. Well, we had to climb this thing up, and it was high, and it was dark. It was not nice, and the helicopter was there. The police helicopter was there, and I always remember that when we got up to that guy, he was frozen and stuck inside this triangular antenna that he had climbed a couple of hundred feet, I think 250 feet. The helicopter was flying around, and it was like even with us, and we could see the guys in the helicopter, and it dawned on me how high we were, eh? But we put a harness on him, and we got him down through the center of the radio tower, and that's always stuck in my mind, that man, if we ever fell off of that thing, we were done. I remember some calls where, I've worked with some great captains, and I remember one in particular. We went to a hazmat call, and my captain's very thorough man, and we done everything according to Hoyle at this hazmat call. We got everything done. We did the perimeter and everything, and did the investigation and all this, and kept everybody away. And I remember that one of the chiefs came up to the truck and was trying to criticize what the captain had done. And he stood by the truck, and the captain is sitting in the truck, and we're ready to leave the scene. And the chief was trying to be critical of his actions, and I remember my captain, just as the chief was talking, slowly rolled up his window, and the chief was still talking, and we drove away. So that was a fun thing for us, and I thought it was a nice thing the captain did. It wasn't disrespectful at all. It was a nice thing he did, because we had really put ourselves out on that call, and we had to be careful of the different type of chemicals that were involved and everything, and so we didn't need critical remarks. We got a call one time for a female down. So 10 station took off, and we went to this address, and there was a lady passed out in this house, but she was breathing and pulse, everything like that. It was all good, but she was completely passed out. And when we took a moment to look at her, we realized she was a nurse. She had a nurse's uniform on, with the little hat and this and that, and then we were administering to her and getting her on the stretcher and trying to get her out of the house. And as we were getting her up the stairs on the stretcher, it was a very small house and a small stairway, little Bo Peep came out of another room. So this guy is there and he's trying to explain this nurse and little Bo Peep and I told you couldn't use it, but anyway, I never expected to see that. And we had a heck of a time getting that nurse out of that basement up those narrow stairs. But I lost my boot, and the captain was very adamant that we get this lady to the ambulance as soon as we could.
Did you get your boot back?
Yeah, I got my boot back.
Later? Did you go back?
Yeah, I didn't want that guy to keep it. He had every other kind of outfit there. I didn't want to have anything to do with a firefighter's outfit. I had a nickname. It wasn't used a lot, and I like to think it was out of fun, but they called me Old Blue at 8 Station for a while because I was an older guy. I was the old guy on the crew, so they called me Old Blue. Going to fires, going to specialized calls. Yeah, water rescue, tech rescue, and vehicle extrication, and then 1034s. 1034 is a house fire, so those were good because you could really apply yourself and get somebody's life out of a jam. And it was always good to succeed at those. Sometimes, they were my favorite thing to do, but sometimes it didn't always work out well. We were too late. They were gone. Whatever. Oh, the guys. Oh, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, I would say, from the first day I got on the job to the last day I left, it was definitely the guys. I mean, it was such an assortment of good people, really good people, that I still speak highly of to this day. And I've been retired for 3 years now, and it's been a while since I've seen some of them, and some of them have passed away. They were older guys, but it's definitely the guys. They were the best. Back in the day, there was a lot of discretion given to the people on the front lines. Okay. And so I knew, talking to some of the older officers and the old captains, that you did what you had to do to get the job done, okay? Mm-hmm. And then you could beg for forgiveness after, rather than ask for permission first. So there seems to be a top-down coercion a little bit, when it used to be bottom-up cooperation before. It's kind of swapped out a little bit. And why that is, I don't know. It doesn't matter to me, but all I know is the captains that taught me, they said, you do what you got to do to get the job done. I think over the years, meaning decades, I would say that the fire department has become more regimented, more strict on issues like safety, preservation of health. It's become more in tune to that, rather than just wantingly, not that anybody ever did that, but risking your life. There's more steps taken now to ensure that there's no unforeseen thing that has been overlooked, some unintended consequence of going in to help somebody and then finding out that, you know, you inhaled something and now you have a sickness or disease. That stuff is being looked at seriously in the last, you know, decades. A big improvement. For the public concerning firefighters, there is an event that happens with the RCMP. It's called the Musical Ride. And during that event, there is really strict commands given to the horses. There's no messing around, no fooling around. I recommend that the public goes out and sees the musical ride, RCMP musical ride. Well, during that event, the horses are really handled in a strict form, totally. And at the end, when there is a big charge and they lower their lances, the charge is the final act of the musical ride. And then they disperse. And I heard the captain, the commander of that musical ride, when it's over, he would tell the riders to dismount your horse, and then he would say, gentlemen, make much of your horses. And all the riders would reach into their pockets and take out apples and sugar cubes and carrots and rub their noses and give them apples and carrots and sugar cubes. And to the public, I would say, make much of your firefighters. Yeah, sometimes taken for granted, sometimes not realizing some of the trauma or some of the baggage that a lot of firefighters carry, whether it's health issues or nightmares from calls where they were trapped. And I know people that were in that situation and they live with those nightmares. They got out, but the nightmare stays with them. And all your garden variety of, you know, infirmities. I don't think the public really can appreciate just how deep that can be sometimes. And that's why I think things like the Fire Museum and all that is very important, because it gives a, what I would call a connecting piece for anyone that, you know, wants to need a staff to lean on, need to go and see your brothers and sisters. The museum is the place to go. I think the families who have a member that of the Winnipeg Fire Department, I think that they have to understand that there is going to be times when mom or dad can't be at that birthday party. There's going to be times when mom or dad, or say a son, can't come to a anniversary for the parents because he's on duty. And there is a lot of times that I would say to families that have members on the Winnipeg Fire Department, choose your own birthday. Choose your own date for an anniversary and just move it. Doesn't have to be specifically on that day. That's how I feel. It's nice when everybody can be there, and if you can't be there because you're on duty, just change the day. keep your mouth shut. Be the last one to sit down at the kitchen table. Be the first one to get up. And learn from those around you. There is a ton of them. And you know what? It's not like it's all Disney World and love and laughter and all this. It's like, we need this. We need the practical jokes, and we need the camaraderie. But I remember that the police had showed up at the fire hall I was working at. 2 constables came in and asked for me, and asked if the captain, if I could be taken into the captain's office. They had something they wanted to tell me. And they had a big folders of paper in their hand and that, and I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute, what's this all about, eh? So they took me into the captain's office, and they said, well, we just wanted to let you know that your truck has been stolen. And I said, my truck? And I slid open the curtain on the captain's window, and I said, no, my truck's not stolen, it's right there in the parking lot. And they said, no, don't you have a brand new truck at home parked in your garage? And I looked at these 2 cops and I said, yes, I do. And he says, well, you don't anymore, it got stolen. Oh my, well, I didn't know. I was gonna ask the captain to let me go home, and I'm looking around, I'm going, well, how do you know it's stolen? And they said, well, we recovered it. And I said, they couldn't have stolen it. I took the battery out of it because I was storing it. They said, well, the neighbors saw a couple of guys pushing it out of the garage, and they thought it was you or whoever, and they saw them put a battery in there, and they took it into Kildonan Park, and they drove it around and smashed it up, and so we got to give it back to you. You know, there's some damage and it's pretty bad, but it's got to be back to you. And I said, no way, this can't have happened to me, and I ain't taking that truck back because it was brand new. And all of a sudden I can hear all this snickering at the door, and the whole crew, there was 8 guys by the captain's door all listening. And when I opened the door, there was like 10 heads there all on top of each other, all laughing at me, eh? And they had me totally freaked out. It was, I got pictures of that, by the way, if you don't believe me. I got pictures of the officers and that. So that was a good one. They had me going, boy, they had me going for like 15, 20 minutes. It was like choreographed. And you know, I gotta hand it to those 2 cops, because where they should have faltered, like on, there's no battery in my truck, they had an answer for everything. When I told them my truck's parked in the parking lot, they said, well, no, don't you have a new one at home? Which I did have. And I hadn't driven it yet. It was brand spanking new. And they had an answer for everything. They were really good. They were really good. Police and fire are very well connected. They always like it when we get into trouble because they say, oh, you took the heat off of us. And we like it when they get into trouble because we say, you took the heat off of us. Favorite apparatus I was ever assigned to would have to be Rescue 8. You know, with all the, extrication for vehicles, climbing in cars upside down, securing the driver, and spine immobilization. The water rescues, some of which were successful, as I mentioned earlier. Some of them weren't, which was very tragic, very hard. But Rescue 8 was the truck. And tech rescue calls. I remember a tech rescue call where we went to a apartment block where a guy was hanging out the window. He was going to jump, and we were put on the roof for 12 hours. We were standing by. Our entire shift we were there standing by. We had rigged up an anchor, and we had our ropes going down to go and secure this guy and save him. But the police negotiator offered him his favorite pizza, and he came in off the window ledge. So it was a good ending. Firefighting has affected my family life in only one way, and that is a positive way. It has been a wonderful gift for me and my family to know the guys and to feel a net worth in yourself that you can contribute, and to see the people around you contributing. Everybody was really ready and willing to give what they had to give, and that was really nice to come home and talk about that with my family, that there's so many good guys on the job.
All right. Last real question. Have you ever gotten an injury on the job? And what was it? If you did.
Well, it's not that I ever just sat in the truck. I always was right in there because I loved it, and you pretty well didn't have a choice. The guys I worked with, man, I felt sometimes like I was like that little dog blowing in the wind, hanging on to the big dog, but you had to go. So I was always in there, and I'd have to say I can't recall or sustained any injury. I got hurt tons of times, but I was one of those guys there was a lot of them. They just sucked it up and didn't say nothing. But you know, it wasn't like we were hurt where we couldn't do our job. It was just a matter of pain, you know. And I remember one time we went to a drug house, and there was some kind of disease in that house. I can't remember what the deal was, but when the captain got that guy out of the burning house because whatever he was cooking blew up, captain dragged him out of the window. I took him from the window to the rescue and the ambulance, pardon me, and I sat him in there, and he coughed all over me, and he had a communicable disease. So I was put in the hospital for, I think, 8 hours or something for observation and a couple of tests, but everything came back negative, and so that was good for me. I had not contracted anything, and I carried on with my my shift through the night. I would have liked to have talked more about the people I worked with. I would just have to name so many guys. Like, you know, I mean, between Donnie Melnick, Deep Pockets Melnick, John Clausen, Gentleman John Clausen, George Tredenik, Iron Balls, I think. That was his. And just so many good guys, Derek Spitsky, and a lot of good guys. It would eat up your tape, so we'll let that go. Is it dead battery? Maybe we'll do this another time.
No, wait, yeah, please.
You can cut out any of that. That doesn't sound good.
No, we're gonna call where you saw something you never expected to see. Something like that.
Is this a family interview?
No. And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
All right.
I told you wouldn't be able to use any of this.
No. So you're the guys you were working with knew about that truck at home.
Yeah,
And that's what they were.
that's
supposed
right.
to be
Yeah, because they
talking
asked me, how come I'm not bringing my new truck, eh? And I told them, well, I'm not ready to drive it. I got a few miles left on this one. So they wanted me to bring my new truck, so they kept, yeah, they knew about it. Anything that I said on this camera, or anything that's a lie, is unintended, because it's how I remember it, so it's the truth.
No,
It's
we
the truth.
totally, yeah, no, we totally know that too. We were talking about that. We talked about that a couple times.
Well, the fact that it's on film, if it's still rolling, the fact that it's on film, you can't lie, because there's going to be corroborating evidence from everybody else, and those things were all true. And I mean, maybe the radio tower was only like 40 feet high. Maybe it wasn't 250 feet high. No, it was up there. The helicopter was pretty well even with us. And they had their big spotlight on us, and yeah, we had to get rehabbed when we came down. It was a long climb. I lived there since, I lived at 800 Beverly since I was 8 years old, since I was 8. And then I moved out when I was 16. So it was 8 years.
Okay.
And George, that was from the years 1962, 61 to almost 1970, 1968 and a half.
And he was there the whole time.
And he was there, I think he was there for the first part of that, around the early 60s, but we missed each other totally. He's quite a bit older than me. He's like 30 years older than me.
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's not. He's only a couple years older than me. So somehow, because when you're teenagers, 16-year-olds don't hang out with 18-year-olds. No way. And so that's what happened. He was just a couple years older than me. So I was just sort of following him through Wellington School, and then General Wolfe, and then Daniel Mack, and all this stuff. But,
So happened.
it was kind of neat how his and my life intertwined. It was really neat.
Yeah, you're meant to be attached.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. Yeah, it sure seems like it.
That guy knows a lot of people.
Yeah, he's one of the best guys. He truly is, for all those connections. He's great. Well, I think the
I'd go
police
with the
should
pizza
remember
too.
that about offer up your favorite pizza. You'll get the guy to, stand down.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, and me, I'm a choke up artist. Oh yeah, I can choke up. Yeah. Okay.
We're not very quick on the.
That's a
there's
mic.
microphone there
Good
the
thing
whole
I didn't
time.
see that. I would have been going like this the whole time.
Hello?
Yeah. Testing.